Realrich Sjarief is the man behind Raw Architecture, an Indonesian studio with now numerous nominations around the world. Raw architecture may be known for the raw and industrial aesthetics, but what it really highlights is the harmony between craftsmanship, people, and materials. And beyond that, Realrich also founded Omah Library, a place for learning architecture through readings, research, workshops, and discussions about architectural theories, practice, and techniques, among many others. And it really is a manifestation of his belief that architectural literacy can improve design methods and appreciation towards it as well, which will be the topic of today's discussion. So, thank you so much, Realrich, for joining us now.
You're welcome, Karina.
Perfect. So, can you tell us first about your journey in architecture?
Okay, basically, when I was a child, my father asked me to accompany him several times many times to go to the field to construct his project with fellow worker. And then I met with his boss named Teddy Boon. Teddy Boon is a structure engineer who has written many basic structure books. And actually, the books is all about create a house for everybody which can withstand the earthquake using a local material, local techniques. I think that kind of behavioral opportunities to meet many people like that is like colored my experience. Like my father, like a form, I thought that I have to be critical in my thinking. For example, like to design, that he always questioned my design for, let's say, for example, like is it really appropriate, is it really necessary? I mean, there are like the questions like is there any other options, so like several levels of questions like that. Then I studied architecture in 2000 when economic recession began to hit, and at that time my father need to close his office because of the recessions. And then I have to go to Borneo to help my brother. So I at that time I was a shopkeeper. So and then my escape point was when I read many books. I went to the local bookstore, and I think is sometimes is the reading books gave me imagination of conditions. So inside the people we have a setting. So and then you have like your safe haven. And then I got accepted in the Institute of Technology of Bandung, and I got this book about Norman Foster. So it's about the curiosity of the technology that inside the books is like drawn very beautifully, drawing the possibility of using steel structures and many interesting structures. Like the project was construction so simple. So I was quite lucky to be accepted in the work with Ridwan Kamil as a at that time he just established his own firm with his fellow partners. So then I continued my journey to Singapore, studied a commercial architecture, and then accepted to Foster and Partners. So it's been pleasurable journey for me in architecture, like to start the journey by meeting many brilliant mentors, to find actually architecture literacy. You know that my favorite spot in Foster and Partners is the library. The library is very tall. It's like I think 6 meters height, and then the width is so narrow. It's like a 2.5 meters. So it's at the back of the facade. It's at the back of the house. So actually, this library is very amazing because it's so tall and it's so tiny and it's so intimate. Actually, not many people went there for reading a books. So I love to like borrow books from the library. So actually, this kind of library gave me like the discussion between the librarians, the fellow workers, like a study group. So it's been like pleasure for me to find my I found my passion in the architecture literacy. I read books like 3 books a day. Not until finished, but to get the idea like a stimulus to get my things, my safe haven for every day. So I get my creative sides and the critical side. So that two sides of the thinking that needs to be sharpened every day.
Yeah, right. It really makes us ask those kind of questions every day, not only to our work, but to our lives as well. So, since we're talking about architectural literacy today, can you maybe specify first what constitutes as architectural literacy?
I think architecture literacy is the essence of the critical and creative thinking in architecture. I remember my story in the library in the University of New South Wales that I always have a discussion with the librarians, discussion with the fellow teachers. and with my friends in Australia, and I try to make new friends actually. That opening a library in my first office in the garage. We made by a beautiful plywood with the modular structures with the bolt and screw that it can be dismantled and moved to the new place. So it's a network of friends in the architecture literacy. The literacy itself, it needs a space, whether it's a physical space or idea or imagining community, because we start with the dream, of course, and then we try to get the dream into the ritual and it's become a reality, it's become a memory. So I think architecture literacy is just like improved literacy. We need to access information as well. It needs to be written, it needs to be spoken. And being literate, meaning not to be cynical, is different. Being literate is to understand that the world of knowledge has a multiple perspective. So it's very broad. So it's about the understanding and to let yourself understand that you're part of the someone's greater than you. So actually, it's like part of the maturity of knowing the information, knowing the knowledge, digesting the knowledge. So I think that's the part of the constitutes the architecture literacy. It's about the maturity.
Yeah, I really like your mentioning of the network of friends and the network of people to foster discussions around the topic. So maybe we'll get back to it later, but you seem to notice the importance of this literacy early on in your career, right? I'm wondering in what ways has it helped your practice?
I mean, a few days ago, I got stuck in the project like several times, like 100 times. I got stuck in the projects. So, such as like we work so many residential design, like we work for craftsmanship, and then I feel that I didn't do something very advancing the work. It's just like walking on your place right now. It's still not going anywhere. So I did write all of this our approach in the one grammar's book that become manual for architecture student who read it. So then I realized that why we are doing specific things like that, like doing details. So and then I look some of the manuscript that I have written before and before. I have written so many manuscripts. So then I realized that okay, I have written something else other than only craftsmanship. Like that's a block inside our mind. So I mean this kind of literacy, like and I found out that I have written so many things, such as for example like the our city problem, like problem of generic city, that problem of the housing. Is our city same face as the New York or Kuala Lumpur? What makes it unique? And then some of the questions about the environmental problem because of car-based centric development. So I remember that 100 years ago in Jakarta that we are still using the same technique to design neighborhood as a part of our city. For example, the Clarence Perry. It's called the neighborhood unit. Even though there are many inventions after that, we are in Jakarta like generally we are still using that technique. It's so sad actually. So, I mean the question is, are we evolving or do I realize that there is a critical issue? So opening my thoughts to be critical. After that, so I have the idea to design a prototype of you of a neighborhood based on a walkable access, using a landscape design and connected with a public transport. So that kind of literacy actually is like helping me to getting out from my block, like that feeling that I'm stuck. So I think that's the method to notice that it's very important to broaden your horizons. It's by reading the case studies, not only books, yeah, but the case studies, the theory, the history, and all of these things that having the things that change our own methods. So it's part of the reflections first, knowing that okay, I need to reflect and I got stuck, and then and try to review what you have done, and then after that you have your action procedures and and you get the okay, I'm in the new world now. So something like that is very important for me in my daily basis.
Right. And I'm assuming this is also how it can improve our appreciation towards architecture as well.
Yes, for sure. It's like very fundamental because if you don't have any horizon and knowledge, you cannot be jumping from one universe to another universe to improve your own method. Only by having like a experience through the real and fantasy world, I think you can have like a multiverse. Not only real world, imagination, and towards the fantasy, you can create the extraordinary world.
Yeah. A really important element with that is also a mind that is open to learning, right? Which sadly almost only happens when we are stuck. But anyways, regarding the infrastructure to learning and gaining knowledge. So I think we are blessed with the internet that is a great open resource for any of us who wants to learn. But I'm assuming this is not enough to sharpen one's mind about the topic. So, in your opinion, what other supporting infrastructure or learning outlets can help us in and bettering our architectural literacy?
For the infrastructures, I think the way to transmit the information is really important. The internet is one of the supporting infrastructure to fasten the quality of architecture literacy. So I think the number of the library as well, and the quality of the books, and the quality of discussions. For let's say like this podcast is very important to share the good thoughts, the essence of the things, and the literally of the things. So I believe the discussion in the micro space will be very important. The micro space meaning there's such a real micro community which someone can share, someone can learn, and there is like a quality of book as well inside the library. So you don't get scattered books like without any category. So the category is very important. The catalog is very important. The way to bracketing the catalog is very important. To review the catalog is very important. And to have a book review is very important. To talk about books is very important. To write it is more important. Not only read it, but to produce the knowledge, understanding, to produce and have a proud of your what you're writing. So after that, you can celebrate this kind of ecosystems. So I think that's one important about the infrastructure. I explained to you the whole like from the one part to another part is like a procedures to have the cycle of knowledge. I think the literacy really is the infrastructure is really fundamental, and we are part of it. So we need to be nurturing the next young writers, especially in the architecture, to have their ecosystem, and then probably in the next 10 or 20 years we can have a very good quality books because they have an ecosystem, meaning the ecosystem of economy, like a profit sharing, the fair profit sharing, the ecosystem of the how the critic, the reviews, the creative reviews, and how to like a courses of the in the writing. So I think it's very important to get these infrastructures ready, not only hard infrastructures but the soft infrastructures.
Yeah, community is really key, it seems like, in amplifying this knock on effect and amplifying knowledge. So maybe you want to share more about Omah Library and the things you've initiated through it?
Yeah, my library is one the library that is part of it. There are many young architects join the library and collaborate in library contributed by library. Some of the lecturers teaching there is not only library but it's like a school of thoughts in architecture. It's a very humble space to share the knowledge, to sharpen your knowledge when everybody can get respected. So it's a way to open up the democratic process into the more transparent, like in the architecture industry it's very rigid. Sometimes it's like I call it like a clubbing things, you have many clubs and many gangs. Okay, we need to break some of the barriers, especially for the young architects, so they can have a space that's no pretentious. So I keep busy myself in the library. It's just to drive the force and just to reduce my presence actually. To have the natural ground, I think I have to remind myself to I have to reduce my presence. But if there is no energy, I have to increase my presence. So something like that is very important to get the flow of ecosystems. So that's the part of my safe haven, to have my friends. But it's not only about my safe haven, I believe, so I hope that it can be safe for many people, so it can be heaven to many people. So I think the goals is to have many writers joining the board to publish more books. We join with some of the communities such as Architecture Hijau. It's like a legendary community from studying like vernacular architecture in Indonesia. We collaborate with the JIE, and there are like many regeneration inside the libraries. Like a year, we regenerate like 2 to 3 people. So I think when they graduated, they can perform in the other communities. So I really, really wish, hope so many young people that can like shaken the world with the many beautiful things that works that they have done, like of writing, of architecture works, like through the understanding. So I think the library itself is way to open up the horizon.
Nice. So finally, you know, everyone must have their initial goals, right? Of why they want to become architects or designers. Do you think having this literacy will change their purpose in the profession?
Okay, my experience when working in Foster and Partners London, that successfully opened my eyes. That it's we still have a gap of capacity of myself at that time, and I don't generalize with the many young architects. But when I was graduated from ITB Bandung, that I have a gap with the graduates from the world best universities for fundamentally from like a MIT, from Harvard, from the UCL, from Architecture Association. So they're very one of the best university architecture university in the world. So I mean, what's the most important part? I learned that critical thinking and argumentative abilities. So every days I have to like argue and then present, produce 3 panels a day. So having a pin up and present again. So that's kind of have the open up my eyes. That undergraduate courses in Indonesia emphasize more technical skills in architecture when what's needed by bureau like Norman Foster and partners is critical argumentations from the architectural point of views, which requires like a methods and theories to produce something that I mean that lectures education system in Indonesia and it tends to dictate students. While in the professional world, I think we must able to develop ourselves, with deliberate and deliberately. So you know that two kind of systems happening. So yes, I will broaden the perspective, to the two things that I have mentioned, like a double blade for being a long learner architects. In your left hand, you need the critical design. On the other hand, you need the creative design. For example, I know like language of bricks. Well, I read the Laurie Baker's and Anthony Gaudi's book, and looking at the history of Majapahit. So I think when there is context of local materials between the outside, global, and the local, and local people who can build it, there is an intent for creatively solving the housing problem, for example. So being in the tradition and being unique can be integrated in one with the contemplations. So literacy really opens up to more collaborations by sharing thoughts, case studies, and more innovations to come. I remember there is three things shared by Robert Greene. One is your original mind, so you know your background. Another one is conventional mind. You can conform to the situations, and you know your other value, so you can conform it. And the third part is dimensional mind, so you can combine between your backgrounds and your norm towards the others people's life. So it's become you get your own dimensional minds. So that three part, the three qualities can unlock the titled, I mean the keyword called mastery. So that I think is very important to understand that literacy can help young architects to change their purpose in these professions to be better architects. So I think it's become more humble, more relaxed, more mature, and you get your safe haven without comparing yourself to other people. So see, the competitions is only for you and by you, and it's only you facing yourself. So no need to hurry it, just walk it, run for yourself, and doing a marathon, whether it's sprint or marathon, is no not a big deal. It's always life.
Right. Although it may sound contradictory, but we really need other people to improve our methods, our practice, and ourselves as well. So, thank you so much for pointing that out and for sharing today. It really makes us aware of the importance of literacy and nurturing that community of like minded people to discuss, share, and just grow our passion in architecture. So, thanks so much, Rich. We wish you the best in everything that you do. Hope to connect again in the future.
Okay,